Hello again. As we approach the general election in a month or so, I thought that it might be interesting to reflect upon the dramatic changes which we have seen on the political scene in this country over the last 15 years or so. The reason being that the government, and indeed the whole setup in British politics, has in the course of that time changed out of all recognition. I am, you understand, talking about what has happened without expressing any view on whether this is an improvement or deterioration. Mind, of course, I have my own personal views on the matter, just like anybody else. The first thing we need to understand is that there has been a paradigm shift, and it is only possible to understand what we are seeing in the context of this. A paradigm is simply a perspective, a way of seeing the world. It's a pattern by which we make sense of what we see around us. A paradigm can be something we all share, a way that we all see things. For example, until the 20th century, we viewed the universe in a particular way. We saw it through the lens of Isaac Newton as a vast mechanical system. Then quantum theory came along and Einstein's theory of relativity, and they altered entirely how we viewed reality, how we viewed the universe. This was a paradigm shift. We changed our perspective. A similar paradigm shift has taken place over the last decade and a half in politics in this country. The English, as I'm sure we all know, have a genius for euphemism. Other nations might have a Minister for the Interior, but we have a Home Secretary, which sounds like a piece of old-fashioned furniture, rather than a government minister. When the post of Home Secretary was created in 1782, it was held by a white man. Between then and 2007, a period of 225 years, the position was only ever held by white men. But when David Cameron became Prime Minister in 2010, that changed forever. Since that time, 14 years ago, white men have stopped being appointed to the post of Home Secretary. Over the course of those 14 years, a white man has been Home Secretary for less than a week. This was Grant Shapps between the 19th and 25th of October 2022. That was it for those 14 years, just 6 days of a white man being Home Secretary. The paradigm has shifted, and Home Secretary is no longer, after 2 centuries or more, a post for a white man. That this has happened is indisputable. That it has been a random process and that it is sheer coincidence that Home Secretaries are no longer white men is unlikely. The change has been too abrupt for that and also too consistent. Clearly, it has been decided or arranged that in keeping with some new perspective or set of rules of which the rest of us are unaware, Home Secretaries should no longer be white men. This is part of a paradigm shift. In this case, the new way of looking at and interpreting the political landscape of Britain. The difference between this paradigm shift and the example which I gave earlier of the change from the Newtonian view of the cosmos which once we held and the one to which we now adhere, that is to say the general theory of relativity, is that this change in perspective was widely discussed, the evidence weighed and the conscious decision made to alter how we regarded the universe. In the case of the paradigm shift in British politics, there has been no such open debate. The whole thing has been undertaken in a hole and corner fashion. Indeed, even drawing attention to the change itself, as I am doing here, is treated by some as being a suspicious activity. Ask any liberal person, somebody whose views are vaguely left-leaning, about the fact that for over 200 years every Home Secretary was a white man, and that now white men seem to be barred from the post, and they will usually pretend not to have noticed that this has happened. After that, after having their attention drawn to it, they will ask why it matters to you, and want to know why you're even mentioning the subject. What are you, a racist or misogynist or something? I've used Home Secretaries as a particularly vivid and obvious instance of the change about which I am talking. I dare say that viewers will be able to come up easily enough with their own examples. There has been a paradigm shift in the last 14 years in British politics, and yet we must not even comment upon it, which I find strange. I shall, by the by, be off grid for the next 24 hours or so. Not, I hasten to add, because YouTube has suspended me or anything. I shall be back tomorrow afternoon.